If you are watching this, and you don't consider yourself a Christian, I want to make a deal with you right now. For the next few minutes, I am not going to ask you to believe in a miracle. I am not going to ask you to pray. I am not going to ask you to accept that a man rose from the dead or walked on water. In fact, I want you to take all of your skepticism, all of your doubts, and keep them. Keep your guard up, because we are not here to talk about a religion. We are here to talk about a cold case. There is a version of Jesus you have heard about your whole life. He is the figure in the stained glass windows, the baby in the manger, the Christ of faith. And it is very easy to dismiss that figure as a myth, a construct of culture, or a fairy tale designed to comfort people. But there is another figure, a figure that lies buried beneath 2,000 years of theology and politics. This is the historical Jesus. And here is the twist that most skeptics don't see coming. The most brilliant, secular, and even atheist historians in the world, people who do not believe in God, are almost unanimously convinced that this man was real. Today, we are going to strip away the supernatural. We are going to put the Bible in a drawer and lock it. We are going to look exclusively at the evidence provided by the enemies of Jesus and the indifferent observers of the Roman Empire. We are going to act as detectives looking at the fingerprints left on the crime scene of history. And what you will find is that the existence of Jesus of Nazareth is not a matter of belief. It is a matter of data. Before we open the files, we have to define the stakes. Why does it matter if a peasant preacher lived in Judea 2,000 years ago? It matters because he is the ghost in the machine of Western civilization. Whether you love him or hate him, you cannot escape him. Our calendar centers on his birth. The universities you attend were founded to study his words. The hospitals you are born in were invented by his followers. The very concept of human rights, the idea that every individual has intrinsic value regardless of their status, is a direct ripple effect of his teaching that the last shall be first. If he is a myth, then the foundation of our modern moral landscape is built on a lie. But if he is real, then we have to ask, who was he? Let's start the investigation by calling our expert witnesses. And I don't mean pastors. I mean the scholars who have no skin in the game. Take Bart Ehrman. He is a distinguished professor at UNC Chapel Hill. He is an agnostic atheist. He writes books criticizing the reliability of the New Testament. He is no friend to fundamentalism. And yet, when asked about the theory that Jesus never existed, he doesn't just disagree. He dismisses it as ridiculous. He says, the idea that Jesus did not exist is a modern notion. It was made up in the 18th century. He calls the amount of evidence for Jesus astounding. Why would an atheist say that? Because he respects the historical method. So let's look at that method. Let's look at the evidence that convinces the atheists. We are looking for hostile corroboration. In history, if your mother says you are a good person, that's nice, but it's biased. If your worst enemy says you exist and admits details about your life, that is gold. Exhibit A, Cornelius Tacitus. Tacitus is the gold standard of Roman historians. He was a senator, a proconsul, and a man obsessed with facts. He wrote around 116 AD, and he absolutely despised Christians. He called their faith a mischievous superstition and a disease. He is not a fanboy. In his annals, he is describing the Great Fire of Rome and how Emperor Nero needed a scapegoat. Nero fastened the guilt on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilatus. Look at what we just found. This isn't a sermon, it's a police report. In one sentence, a hostile Roman senator confirms: 1. The leader was named Christus. 2. He was executed by the state. 3. It happened under Pilate. 4. It happened during the reign of Tiberius. 5. The movement started in Judea. This matches the timeline of the Gospels perfectly. Tacitus isn't trying to prove Jesus existed. He's just reporting the news. And in doing so, he locks Jesus into the grid of Roman history. Exhibit B, Flavius Josephus. This is our Jewish witness. Josephus was a Jewish general who defected to Rome. He wrote the Antiquities of the Jews around 93 AD. He mentions Jesus twice. Now we have to be honest here. One of those passages was tampered with by later Christians. They added phrases like, "He was the Messiah." No Jewish historian would write that. But when scholars strip away those added phrases, there is a solid, authentic core underneath. Josephus confirms there was a wise man named Jesus. He confirms he had a brother named James. He confirms he was a teacher of surprising deeds. And he confirms that Pilate condemned him to the cross. Think about the James reference specifically. In passing, he refers to a man named James as the brother of Jesus, the so-called Christ. He uses Jesus to identify James. That means Jesus was more famous than his brother. It's a casual, non-religious reference that proves Jesus was a known public figure in 1st century Jerusalem. The cloud of witnesses. We have Pliny the Younger, a Roman governor writing to the emperor in 112 AD, complaining about these Christians who meet at dawn to chant verses to Christ as to a god. We have Suetonius, another Roman historian, referencing riots in Rome caused by Chrestus. We have Mara bar Serapion, a Syrian philosopher writing from prison, comparing the wise king of the Jews to Socrates and Pythagoras. He asks, what did the Jews gain by executing their wise king? He doesn't call him a god, he calls him a philosopher, but he confirms the execution. Now, I know what the skeptic in you is thinking, but wait, these were written 40, 60, maybe 80 years after he died. That's too late! I get why that feels late to us. In our world, news travels in seconds, but in the ancient world, that is lightning fast. Let me give you some perspective. We all believe Alexander the Great existed, right? The two best biographies we have of Alexander the Great were written by Arrian and Plutarch. Do you know when they wrote them? 400 years after Alexander died? 4 centuries. With Jesus, we have sources writing within the lifetime of the people who knew him. In the context of ancient history, the evidence for Jesus is not just good. It is embarrassing how much we have. We have more evidence for the existence of Jesus of Nazareth than we do for the existence of the Emperor Tiberius, the man who ruled the world while Jesus was alive. Another objection I hear constantly. If he was so important, why isn't there archaeology? Why no physical evidence? This is the argument from silence, and it is a trap. Jesus was a peasant. He was an itinerant preacher from a backwater town called Nazareth. In the 1st century, people like that didn't leave statues. They didn't leave coins. Consider Spartacus. He led a slave revolt that almost destroyed Rome. He commanded an army of thousands. Do you know how many contemporary Roman sources mention him by name? 0. We know he existed because of the impact he left, but the physical evidence is gone. To expect a carpenter to leave a physical paper trail is to misunderstand how history works. So where does this leave us? We have a Christ of faith that you might not be ready to accept. That is fine. But we have a historical Jesus that you cannot ignore. We have a man who appears in the Roman records, a man who appears in the Jewish histories, a man whose execution is confirmed by his enemies, a man whose existence is defended by atheists. To deny that Jesus existed requires you to be more skeptical than the leading historians of the world. It requires you to believe in a conspiracy theory so vast that it fooled Romans, Jews, and Christians alike. It actually takes more faith to believe he was a myth than to believe he was a man. This brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all. If he was real, if he really walked those dusty roads, if he really was executed by the state, then how did he win? How did a dead peasant, whose followers ran away in fear, suddenly become the catalyst for the largest movement in human history? How did the Roman Empire, which killed him, eventually bow the knee to him? If he was just a man, he is the most successful, inexplicable, and powerful man who has ever lived. Recognizing his existence is the first step. It is the step where you stop fighting history and start engaging with it. You don't have to call him Lord today, but you have to call him real. And once you accept that he was real, the next question is waiting for you. What makes this one life different from every other life ever lived? I want to know where you stand. If you are a skeptic, what is the biggest hurdle for you? Is it the miracles? Is it the church? Or is it the history itself? Tell me in the comments. I read them, and I want to understand. And if you want us to do a part 2, where we look at the psychological profile of this man, why he said the things he said, let me know. The investigation is just beginning.